everyone, it's Speak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you of the upcoming 2026 reboot movie that is upon us. I thought I'd take a look back as to what I deem and to what many fans deem to be the best iteration of Masters of the Universe, and that is with the 2002 animated series. Now there may be spoilers here mentioned throughout, so just beware when going into this overall video. So when looking back on the series, it was released way back now on August the 16th in 2002 on the Cartoon Network. It was produced by Mike Young Productions. And it was the third animated series of Masters of the Universe franchise after the iconic 1983 version and the very much derided and forgotten 1990s adaptation. In an attempt to revive the franchise, this version from 2002 really attempted to go back to the series' original roots and story, paying homage a lot more to the 1983 version, but also looking to expand on both character backstory and mythology within the franchise. The main story and concept remains the same. Set on the fantasy world of Eternia, we focus on the warrior hero known as He-Man, who alongside his friends and allies known as the Masters, battle against the evil forces throughout the land. The most constant of these forces is the Dark Lord known as Skeletor, who seeks to conquer Castle Grayskull, which contains the ultimate power of the Elders. Now, despite the 1983 version seen as the most influential and famous He-Man iteration, the 2002 version remains absolutely superior in almost every single way. From the visual aesthetic, the story characterization and tone, this version really enhances and improves every single department. And when really thinking about it, this is the ideal way to revive a classic 80s franchise. It provides a much more epic, mature direction without deconstructing the classic characters, and it stays true to the identity of the franchise. As with 1983, we get plenty of standalone episodes and stories that are, for the most part, straightforward plots of He-Man and the Masters fending off against Skeletor's attempts to claim Castle Grayskull. But what made this series so good is the development of the characters' origins, which would result in a much more deeper, more serialised storytelling, providing a much more greater viewing experience, and we would eventually expand to other villains and antagonists, which would freshen up the mix. Now, of course, the most distinctive feature is the animation, which was far more fluid and dynamic and action-packed. The series clearly adapted more anime-influenced techniques in all of its main transitions. We have multiple examples of characters leaping up in the air and pirouetting around in multiple somersaults, typical superhero landings, facial close-ups and slow-motion moves, very much trying to keep in touch with what was then the current trend of animation stories. The character designs were updated, were much more detailed, but it still retains their classic look. Many characters, including a lot of the villains such as Beastman, Triclops and Trapjaw, had a much more bigger, bulkier, muscular look, which again was in keeping more with the styles at the time. We could argue that some of the designs were too complex or complicated when we look at Teela especially, but overall they still look great on the screen. What I also loved about this series was the world building, which is typified none more so than the epic 3-part opening of the series told at the beginning. This is where we see Skeletor in his original guise as Keldor assaulting the Hall of Wisdom, and we have Captain Randall and his forces trying to stop them acquiring the great power from the Elders. And it's such a great way to introduce you to the overall story. We see King Randall's role expanded, and we have multiple episodes where he tries to broker and maintain a peace within the various races throughout the kingdom. So he's much more involved and carries far more presence and authority within this series. As with the 1983 version, we see Teela, and many episodes centering once more on her, around her heritage as daughter of the sorceress. We have a couple of great episodes where we really see the early manifestations of the powers and he's able to unwittingly manipulate as she comes closer to the sorceress, and we see that development play out, especially throughout the first season. Evil Lyn, whilst loyal to Skeletor, also harbours her own desires and ambitions, especially when she feels betrayed by Skeletor in the early parts of Season 2, and we have some fantastic backstory involving her and Skeletor, including how they discover Evil Lyn and her presence for the first time. We also have plenty involvement of the Masters characters, from Mechanic, Buzzoff, Stratos, Ranman and Fisto, and all of them are given their own separate stories to introduce and integrate within the stories. This also includes the likes of Monster Many-Faces and Roboto as well. And this really typifies how wide the universe is, that we had, especially with the first season, around 20 plus episodes, so there was plenty of scope to fully enhance these characters and their original backstories. And of course, the best character innovation was the separation of He-Man and Adam. This time we have Adam as a much more younger teenager who is much more blasé and passive in his overall motivation, and this gives that distinction and much more credible suspension of disbelief that nobody would ever suspect or realise that He-Man and Adam are the same person. So I actually liked that change and that innovation. It taps back into that classic superhero and alter ego identity that provides many moments of suspense, tension, and also light comedy also. Now, in terms of the seasons, we had 2 overall. Season 1 was very solid, with some exceptional episodes, but it was really Season 2 where the series hit its stride, starting with the incredible premiere, The Last Stand, which sees He-Man as absolutely most powerful, taking on all of Skeletor's forces single-handedly. We have some absolutely epic action set pieces during this installment. I also loved Skeletor's origin in the episode The Price of Deceit, and this ties again to Evelyn's betrayal following her association with the Snake Men, who become the main series antagonists. And again, we have some really great dynamics between both of the 2 characters who end up being 2 of the most compelling throughout this particular series. And this also ties into the presence of Hordak, who, as we all know, was the main antagonist throughout the She-Ra series, and this iteration of He-Man did great, laying down the foundations on how much Hordak was a superior being to Skeletor, much like what the Emperor was to Darth Vader in the Star Wars stories. And I just loved all of this world building again in terms of building this overall character, and The Price of Deceit ended up being one of the series' best. This is also the same for the episode titled The Power of Grayskull, and this is where we get a prelude, the whole history of the Eternian mythology, where we see the actual King Grayskull versus Hordak in an absolutely fantastic episode, really building the mythology once more. We see the elders in their original form, we see the sorceress actually before she becomes a sorceress, and this is where we get a large scale full-on war involving Grayskull and Hordak. And again, this does so well in laying down the original origins of these characters. And to mix things up, as I mentioned, we actually have the Snake Men as the main antagonist this time around. We see them earlier on, led by King Hiss. They get the better of Skeletor in Snake Mountain, before going on to also look to claim the power of Grayskull and dominate it. And I really like the fact that, again, we have much more focus on other villains. It's not just about Skeletor dominating, and this gives much variation throughout the entire series. But sadly, the Snake Men didn't get the full conclusion, as the series itself winds up getting cancelled halfway through Season 2, and this was down to poor tour sales and also ratings on the Cartoon Network. And this is such a shame, because the show, as I mentioned before, was really going from strength to strength. Though, as always, sadly, commercialism takes priority over creativity, and toy sales really isn't the reason you want to cancel such a quality show like this. But again, we're looking at He-Man, which by original design was developed and brought into existence through a line of toy figures itself. And this is even more sad given the fact that the creators of this series already had big plans for a 3rd season, which would have seen Hordak break free from his dimensional prison to successfully conquer Eternia, and this would have seen He-Man and the Masters on the run as fugitives. And there also would have been potential for them to team up with Skeletor later on to face off against Hordak, and we would have eventually seen also a prime introduction to She-Ra. And this would have been an absolutely fantastic fresh narrative to the lore and the mythology, and once more probably would have garnered the best season of the entire series. And it's such a shame given the recent failed adaptations that we've seen surrounding the Masters universe, involving all of the Netflix series and sadly also the 2006 recent Travis Knight reboot. As a fan of the franchise, you just lament the fact that when you get a version such as this, that is absolutely perfect for the franchise. It takes it seriously and really builds on what was so good about the overall concept and story, and it actually enhances on the original version. To see it cut so short is just, again, so sad to see. And I guess it's just another lesson for fans of the franchise that when we do get a superior version such as this, you really need to praise it as much as possible, using all of your resources regarding social media, and promote the show whenever you can to convince the original showrunners that when you have a successful iteration such as this, it really is worth making a long time investment in. But despite all of that, the 2002 He-Man version animated series is definitely one I would recommend checking out if you want to see the franchise at its fullest with its most epic, grandiose and serious take. This is really the definitive version that is definitely worth the most in terms of a long time investment in. So there's my thoughts and feelings when looking back at the 2002 He-Man animated series. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further suggestions, movies, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene they'd love to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.